Welcome to Ralph's Fly Box. Today we're going to tie a deer hair popper. This is it's a general popper. It's my favorite pattern. I didn't develop it. It's got the materials of many of the patterns that you've seen in bins over the years. But it's a version that's easy to tie. It's very durable and it's very successful for me. I tie it in basically three colors: black, olive, and natural. And we'll go with the olive today. I start out with a size 2 Gamakatsu Stinger and 6/0 black uni thread. We're going to start our thread at the point of the hook and wrap back just prior to the bend. I'm going to try and go fast to make sure that we can get this all in on a decent length video. And my first material that I tie in is deer hair. It's bucktail. I tie in a small clump of white to begin the tail portion of the fly. This is mainly to separate the hackles, but it does serve a purpose. I feel white is probably my most productive for the center of the tail. It's probably more of an attractor. Fish see it, they see it move. And what I do is I tie this in twice the length of the hook. So I measure it, then I cut about, leave about a 1/4 inch butt. That's going to be my base for the tail portion, and then I wrap it in. I only hand stack. I don't stack this. I just hand stack it a little bit, get the real flyers out, but I leave it as is as I trim it. And we're going to bind that down pretty good. Don't want that to go anywhere. The next material we're going to tie in, I use a dark ginger. It's almost a Cree dark bar ginger. You can use regular grizzly if you want. I like this for this pattern. And I pull off 4 of the large webby hackles, matching. I just pull them off together so I know they're going to be staying. I don't worry about them being on the opposing side of the neck or anything. I don't think it matters once it gets wet. Once a popper gets wet and you rip it through the lily pads one time, it really doesn't matter whether or not there's a slight curvature difference or one's slightly up or down. When you're swimming these patterns through the water, everything is moving and undulating, and precision I don't think really makes a difference. So that's personal opinion. And I use my larger hackles off the neck. If you've got a saddle, that's great, dedicated to poppers. And I'm going to tie this in approximately the same length as the tail, allowing for the curve. I tie them in together, 2 on each side. Same thing, line up the tips. Get them about even. Hold it in place. Now these will tend to want to go where you want them, where they want to go. Like I just allowed that to do. Try that again. You want to slip on me. Like I said, try and get them as good as you can. However, once you're swimming these things through a pond, all bets are off. There we go. And they're tied in. About as close as you're ever going to need them. And you're going to come in, clip off the butts. And you want to make sure you keep the butt. I manage it when I'm doing poppers. I manage a section that I lay out as the tail, and you don't want to go too much farther forward because then you're gonna affect your spinning of your deer hair, and you don't want to do that. And there's our tail. One more material we tie in. Alright, tie in is centipede legs. I like the centipede legs. I like the texture of this brand. This is mottled brown. And we're going to tie 2 in right in front of the hackle on that side. And we'll do the same thing. I cut these to length, about the same length as the tail, and I just try and leave the same amount. Position that far side. Try and leave the same amount on either end for the butt ends. And once I get them tied in, I'm going to trim them off again. I don't want to extend that tail section that I talk about too much. And then once I get the tail finished, as is right there, I give a quick 2-wrap whip finish, just out of habit mainly, and then move my thread back to the back. And when we start the hair, if you've watched me tie hair bugs before, you'll know that I don't overthink this process. And I'm fishing mainly ponds with a lot of crap in the water. So these don't stay pristine for very long. They don't look like this very long. What you're going to do is your first stack, you're going to tie in your tail or your fan. I don't stack them, I just leave them natural. I'm going to measure it about hook length. Then we're going to pinch them. And we're going to cut off the butts just like an elk hair caddis. And we're going to place them right in front of that tail section. And we're going to pull it tight. You're basically tying an elk hair caddis. Let that thing fan out. In front of the tail and the leg section. Then you're going to bind back over it. And then we're going to start our stack. Now the first one generally doesn't spin very well because you are covering up that last little bit of tail section. And if you notice, what I do is I trim about a pencil length section or width section. I sweep the butts free. I don't worry about trimming these. A lot of people do. I don't. It's just a step I don't see as necessary. I cut it all off when I trim it. But your first one is going to go on basically the same as the tail. Give one wrap. Wind into it and then pack that back into that tail good. We're going to sweep that back in. Push it tight. That first one, I want to get good and tight. Pack it into that fan as tight as I can. And now you see we've got a bare shank, and you're going to work from there. And you're just going to go back in, grab another pencil width section, trim your, or sweep your butts clean, hold it on top, get 2 wraps, pull it, and push it back. Now I won't win any awards for spinning or trimming deer hair bugs. I don't have the patience to become artistic with them when it comes to deer hair spinning. I'm very practical. What we're going to do is just continue to move that hair forward, because a deer hair bug seldom ever makes it through an entire day for me. Next stack. 1, 2, pull it tight, spin it. You can position it a little bit if you see it go too far one way and you got a better spin if you move it. Press it back. Now I stack mine just with my hands. You can use a hair stacker or a packer. Once you ram your thumb tip into the hook of a stinger hook a couple times, you might be prompted to buy one. I just, probably out of laziness, I don't use one. However, they are a good option. And again, pencil width, clean the butts out. 1 full wrap, spin it and push it back, and you're just going to take this all the way to the front. We'll probably get 2 more in here. Good rule of thumb is, if you have a slight gap and it looks like you might be able to get another one in, you probably can. If you don't, you'll be left with a little bit of a gap and you won't be satisfied. So if it looks like you got enough room to squeeze one more stack in, do it. Now you'll notice it's a big ugly bug right now. It looks like nothing, but that's how it's supposed to look. That's how they start out. Yeah, we'll get at least 1 more in there. Don't worry about what it looks like right now. It's in its pupal stage. And it'll hatch soon enough when you take scissors to it. Yeah, sweep back again. And don't panic if you mess one up. One clump up. I do it all the time. If it won't pack against, just back it off, take it out, tie in a new stack. And this is what I mentioned before. If it looks like you could probably get 1 more stack in there, you can. You want it to be as tight as possible. So we'll put another one in there. Sometimes I grab a little too much hair when I'm to the end. That's easy to do, and it doesn't want to spin right. And that's when I say, just back it off, take it out, get a smaller stack, tie it in. At this point, this is like clay. You're just molding. Squeeze that in there. Yeah, it worked. How about that? Press it back in. Get it behind the eye of that hook. And then we're going to whip finish. If I can find my whip finish. You've taken it all the way to the front. Don't worry about what it looks like. It's a creature right now. Bassbugs are only as good as the scissors and the person behind the scissors. That's 90% of that finished bass bug that you see. Nobody ties them to look like that. They all look like this when the first being tied. And there's your spun hair bug. Now the first thing you're going to do, and I'll try and do this expediently so that we don't run out of patience or time, I make sure everything is loose, everything is evenly spun. Just run your finger around it. Bring everything, you've been packing everything, so bring everything forward a little bit. And I'm going to take it out of the vise. Now I like to gather my, move the vise out of the way here. I like to gather all my tail fibers and all my tail material and pinch it so I don't accidentally trim them off with this first cut. And I'm going to come in underneath here, flush just underneath the eye of the hook. I'm going to trim this all off right back to my fingers. Don't get your fingers. You only do that once and then you'll pay attention a little bit more. I make sure I pay attention and keep you on camera. And all you're doing is trimming it flat or semi-flat. You can see that's your starting point. Now I'm going to do this one as a diver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in at a 45-degree angle. Keep it wide. Don't take it too narrow the first couple times. And I'm going to bring this in right even with the eye. Okay? And I'm going to come over on this side, keeping it a little bit more than a 45-degree angle. But I'm going to put my tip of my scissors pretty much right up against the eye. And a few flyers there. And that's going to start my taper. Next I'm going to do the same thing on top. I'm going to come in a little bit higher than 45, right down to the tip, right down to the eye of the hook. Make my first cut. And there you'll see you're starting to get that diver look to it. And then I'm going to come in and get my corners. I'm going to come in from behind, staying with my taper. Come in from behind on the other side, staying with my taper. And each time I trim, I'm going to come from behind and grab those excess fibers or hairs and keep my scissors parallel with the original taper that I designed, or I started. You don't want to get your hair that is in your fan. You want to stick with the clipped butts you'll see up here. So you're only grabbing them. And keeping with your taper. And it looks like I'm a little uneven at the bottom. So we'll trim them a little bit. And you'll see it quickly starts to take shape. Now you don't have to be perfect. Get you in the right light. And you can stop here, or you can keep trimming. What I like to do is I'll come down underneath here then and make sure that I get all the flyers, the ones that I missed. I'll pull them up with my scissors, then I'll trim them even. Just clip them off. I like to keep that hook gape open. And there you have it. You can be as artistic as you want. You can add colors to it if you want. But I will say one thing. This pattern, as it sits right here, does very well. It's nothing fancy. No fancy trim job. This is the olive version. If you want to trim a popper head, the same fly in the light version. It's right there. Tied exactly the same. Just trimmed with a different head. Same materials otherwise. Just natural deer hair. And this is olive. And there it is. Deer hair popper. This is a diver. This is traditionally a popper. I fish them identical. I hope that clears things up, helps you out with your deer hair spinning. I'm not a perfectionist at it, but I make it work for myself. I hope that helps you. Good luck. See you on war.